So let's talk about where you typically want to place this React.suspense component. One thing that I find a lot of people do when they do this exercise is they want to wrap the globe directly, which actually does work out just fine. So let's go ahead and we'll do that. We'll have a React suspense right there. And we got to have things syntactically correct. There we go. Great. And then we can get rid of that and that. There we go. And now I click on Show Globe, and you'll notice everything works exactly as it had before. And this is actually a perfectly fine way to do this because it'll work just fine in the current version of React. But we'll find that in a future version of React, React.suspense will actually wait on showing the fallback for a certain amount of time, and we'll learn a lot more about that when we talk about concurrent React. However, even with concurrent React, it does not wait that certain amount of time on its initial mount. It'll just show that fallback immediately. So there will be some implications for how React Suspense operates when it's mounted versus when it's just updated. And because we're putting it within this show globe, it's being mounted at the same time our globe is showing up. So for that reason, I'm going to leave it outside here like this. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what happens if we were to move this, I don't know, all the way surrounding everything in this component. So all of the divs and all of that. So if we do that, then take a look at what happens to this checkbox. Kaboom, it's gone. Let's go ahead and do a refresh and see that a little bit slower. Kaboom, it's gone. We don't get any of our UI. It is all replaced by that fallback UI. This might be very familiar from error boundaries perspective. If you've used the error boundary before, that's exactly the same way that the error boundary behaves. Is the entire children is managed by that suspense boundary. The nice thing about this is that if any of these other components suspend like the globe is, then they will also be managed by the same suspense boundary. We probably want to locate that suspense boundary closer to where it's relevant, so it can provide a more useful fallback. In addition to all of this, if you want to test out your suspense boundaries, then you can actually come to the Components DevTools, select any component down here, and click this stopwatch, and that will suspend that component. So you can see what suspense boundary is going to handle it and what that fallback UI is going to look like. And then when you're selected on that suspense boundary, you can unsuspend that selected component and see what everything looks like when it's no longer suspending. That's a really useful feature of the DevTools. Definitely spend time playing around with that. But I'm going to put this suspense boundary right back here. We'll save that, get a refresh here. And the reason that it's going so slow is because my network tab is still set to slow 3G, which is no fun. So we'll go back to our components, click on Show Globe, and then Globe Container, click on Suspend the selected component, and boom, we've got our loading indicator right there. So in review, the React Suspense Boundary location has implications on the loading experience for your users and where that fallback UI falls in the React tree. I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting React suspense boundaries around every single component that could suspend. I would recommend being mindful about the type of fallback UI that you can provide to users based on the location of where that suspense boundary appears, very similar to your error boundaries.